It's soft, common, and something most people wear almost every day. Yet behind this humble fabric lies one of the most dramatic stories in human history. Cotton connected ancient civilizations, built global trade networks, fueled the Industrial Revolution, enriched empires, and helped sustain slavery. Few plants have had greater impact on the modern world. From fields in India and Peru to factories in Britain and plantations in America, cotton changed everything it touched. Learn more about the remarkable history of cotton on this episode of Everything Everywhere Daily. This episode is sponsored by Mint Mobile. It's been said that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Well, I'd like to update this and suggest that insanity is paying too much for something when you can get something equally as good for less. With Mint Mobile, you can stop the insanity and get high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network, starting at only $15 a month. Bring your own phone and number, activate with eSIM in minutes, and start saving immediately. No long-term contracts, no hassle. That is why I recommend Mint Mobile. If you like your money, Mint Mobile is for you. Shop plans at mintmobile.com/EED. That's mintmobile.com/EED. Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month 5 GB plan required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customer offer for first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. This episode is sponsored by Quince. Steve Jobs is famous for having multiple versions of the same outfit that he wore every day. And I'm not saying I'm Steve Jobs, but I do have a rather simple wardrobe, a habit I developed through years on the road living out of a bag. My Quince cashmere sweater is something I've mentioned before, and I've come to wear it almost every single day. Not only does it look good, but it's incredibly durable. And the best part is that Quince's prices are 50 to 60% lower than those of similar brands. Quince works directly with ethical factories and cuts out the middleman, so you're paying for quality, not brand markup. Everything is designed to last and make getting dressed easy. Two things that I really care about. Refresh your wardrobe with Quince. Go to quince.com/daily for free shipping and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. Go to quince.com/daily for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/daily. Cotton comes from plants in the genus Gossypium, a group of shrubs native to tropical and subtropical regions. Cotton fibers grow around the seeds of a plant. Once clean, spun, and woven, they create a cloth that is soft, breathable, washable, and comfortable in warm climates. Compared with wool, cotton was lighter and cooler. Compared with linen, it was often easier to weave into a variety of fabrics, and it could also be readily dyed. Unlike crops with a single center of domestication, cotton was domesticated independently in multiple parts of the world. At least 4 species of cotton were domesticated by humans. In the Old World, Gossypium arboretum was domesticated in South Asia, likely in the Indus Valley region, and Gossypium herbaceum was in Africa or Arabia. In the New World, Gossypium hirsutum was domesticated in Mesoamerica, probably in Mexico, and Gossypium barbadense along the Pacific coast of South America, especially in Peru. Cotton fibers have been found in Peru dating back as far as 6000 BC and in Mexico 2,000 years later. The Indus Valley was not only growing cotton by 3000 BC, but also weaving it into specific textiles. African communities were using cotton in the Nile Delta as early as 5000 BC, a full 2,000 years before the rise of Egyptian civilization. Before the rise of cotton, people wore fabrics depending on the region that they lived in. Wool from sheep was quite popular in Europe and Central Asia, particularly in colder climates. In the Middle Ages, the wool trade was the backbone of the European economy, particularly in Northern Europe. In East Asia, silk production was widespread, though it was more readily available to the elite, leaving commoners to usually wear linen. Linen from the flax plant was the primary textile for clothing, even in areas where cotton was available, as cotton required far more intensive care and advanced irrigation. The weavers of ancient communities in modern-day India and Pakistan gained regional fame for their technical mastery of cotton fabrics. The demand for elaborate calicos of South Asian weavers was high, as they were found in trade markets as far away as Egypt and the Mediterranean world. The attributes of cotton didn't escape the Greek historian Herodotus, who noted, quote, "In India, trees are growing wild, which produce a kind of wool better than sheep's wool in beauty and quality, which the Indians use for making their clothes." End quote. India's mastery of spinning and dyeing made it the center of the world's cotton industry at the time. Indian cotton became a crucial part of the evolving Indian Ocean trade network, which treated it as a prized commodity, often traded for African gold and spices from the Spice Islands of Indonesia. Indian weavers achieved complete mastery of cotton production with the development of muslin. Muslin was a remarkably light, airy textured cotton developed in Dhaka, in what is today Bangladesh. The BBC noted the importance of cotton muslin, stating, quote, "Made via an elaborate 16-step process with a rare cotton that only grew along the banks of the holy Meghna River, the cloth was considered one of the great treasures of the age." End quote. Muslin became even more prized than the most elaborate silk fabrics coming from China. Once believed to be extinct, the cotton species Pudicarpus was the source for the Dhaka muslin, a fabric so fine that the Romans nicknamed it woven wind. Researchers and scientists have scoured the region around the Meghna and Brahmaputra rivers in modern-day Bangladesh to find a rogue plant of the extinct species. The search relied solely on historical evidence, including where the plant once grew and fossilized leaves preserved at the Royal Botanical Gardens in London. Researchers were excited to have found several plants near the river in 2014 that were a perfect genetic match, and they've begun a restoration campaign to grow the formerly extinct cotton species. In the early 18th century, in an effort to help the British wool industry, Parliament banned the importation of Indian cotton goods. England's swift industrialization combined with this prohibition spelt the end of the Indian muslin era. Consequently, the British East India Company overwhelmed South Asian markets with inexpensive, tariff-free British textiles. The muslin producers were forced into service by the British East India Company at rates well below market, effectively ending the business. A major challenge of modern researchers has been finding the families of former weavers to gather any family legacy stories about their techniques. The Silk Road was a key to the introduction of cotton into China, as cotton is not indigenous to East Asia. Cotton was slow to gain a foothold in China as it was viewed as a southern innovation and panned by Chinese elites, who preferred silk for themselves and hemp clothing and linen for the common people. Cotton did not enjoy widespread acceptance in China until its conquest by the Mongols, as the Mongols showed no real interest in traditional Chinese conventions. The Mongols knew that they could layer cotton, and they found quilted cotton lined with skins or silk a very valuable asset in the inhospitable climates of Central Asia. The arrival of Europeans did not introduce cotton to the Americas as it was already there, but it did introduce new economies. After the massive European migration to the Americas and the establishment of British colonies, the cotton belt emerged. Being a tropical and semi-tropical plant, cotton requires a frost-free environment, which rules out most of North America above 37 degrees latitude. The areas below Kansas, Missouri, and Kentucky were well suited to cotton cultivation, and as British industrialization expanded after the introduction of the water frame and later the steam engine, these regions ramped up production as they shifted away from tobacco. The evolution of cotton production in North America coincided with the introduction of slave labor to the southern colonies. In the early 1790s, the American South faced a pivotal moment. Tobacco, long the region's primary cash crop, had depleted the soil, leaving planters to struggle with cotton production, which remained a costly and inefficient business. The primary obstacle was the inherent physical constraints of manual processing. An enslaved worker could spend an entire day cleaning only a single pound of cotton. This was due to the specific type of cotton native to North America, short staple upland cotton, which contains remarkably sticky seeds that are notoriously difficult to detach from its fibers. The plantation system in the South seemed destined to become a historical footnote due to exorbitant labor costs and restrictive British mercantile tariffs on raw imports. However, a single technological breakthrough fundamentally altered the economic landscape. In 1793, Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin, a simple machine that used combs to separate seeds from fibers. After the invention of the cotton gin, a slave working an entire day would now be producing 50 pounds of cotton, up from just 1. The cotton gin actually entrenched slavery in the South by allowing cotton production to explode. Before the invention of the cotton gin, the cotton belt produced only 3,000 bales of cotton for export. In the year 1800, just 7 years after the development of the cotton gin, the region produced 73,000 bales, more than a 2,300% increase in just 7 years. The cotton belt became the Cotton Kingdom, feeding British textile factories. Before the start of the American Civil War, the American South accounted for an estimated 75% of the cotton used in British factories. The seat of the English Industrial Revolution, fueled by cotton, was Manchester, England, also known as Cottonopolis. Weavers in the cottage industry here produced textiles before machines dominated the local industry. Cotton fueled the transition to machines such as the spinning jenny and the spinning mule. Between 1750 and 1850, Manchester grew from a city of 18,000 to more than 300,000, with a growth rate of over 1,500%. That growth all came to a grinding halt in 1861 with the outbreak of the American Civil War. Manchester suffered greatly when the Union's naval blockade cut off the supply of southern cotton. Unable to secure the raw materials essential for their machinery, the city's mills faced a crisis further exacerbated by global supply chain disruptions, including India's struggle for independence. The Lancashire cotton famine, which followed the collapse of the cotton supply chain, wreaked havoc on the British economy. As the largest city in Lancashire County, Manchester felt the swift effects. Within 4 months, the mills ran out of cotton, leading to widespread job loss, poverty, and even famine among the workers. Although the cotton shortage caused significant distress throughout Lancashire, the region's laborers remained steadfast. At a meeting held in Manchester on December 31, 1862, textile workers resolved to back the Union's campaign to abolish slavery, choosing to prioritize the cause of human liberty over their own economic survival. By the 20th century, the technology that had driven the English textile industry had spread across Europe and North America. The Industrial Revolution in textiles, which England had previously monopolized, had now spread globally, leading to the expansion of cotton production worldwide. One of the biggest ecological disasters of the 20th century was directly related to the production of cotton: the disappearance of the Aral Sea. The Aral Sea was once the fourth largest lake in the world, but the Soviet Union's attempts to establish a cotton kingdom in an area incapable of supporting such extensive cotton cultivation made the lake all but disappear. The rise of fast fashion trends in the 21st century has ensured that cotton use continues unabated, even with the introduction of synthetic fiber blends and polyester. Cotton consumption has further intensified due to the shift of manufacturing to developing countries and the expansion of global shipping networks. The current global annual cotton production is typically around 24 to 26 million metric tons of lint cotton, although it can vary with weather, prices, and planting decisions. Lint cotton is cotton that has been prepared for fabric production with the seeds already removed. The world's largest producers of cotton are China, India, the United States, Brazil, and Pakistan. Cotton has followed a trajectory similar to many of the great drivers of world history. Once a coveted luxury the ancient Greeks called wool from trees, cotton has become a staple so common that it often goes unnoticed. It fueled the Industrial Revolution, propped up slavery in the American South, and was responsible for the disappearance of one of the world's largest lakes. Cotton has become woven into the very fabric of our daily lives, found in everything from the linens on our beds, the towels in our bathrooms, and our most cherished t-shirts. And it all started thousands of years ago when ancient people around the world all figured out how to turn a fuzzy plant into clothing. The executive producer of Everything Everywhere Daily is Charles Daniel. The associate producers are Austin Oetken and Cameron Kieffer. Research and writing for this episode was provided by Joel Hermanson. My big thanks go to everyone who supports the show over on Patreon. Your support helps make this podcast possible. And I also want to remind everyone about the community groups on Facebook and Discord, as this is where everything happens outside of the podcast. As always, if you leave a review on any of the major podcast apps, you too can have it read on the show.